Pregnant Amelia thought she was chasing a cheating husband, but one dinner exposed a dynasty built on betrayal, fraud, and a secret too dangerous to reveal. Instead of choosing revenge, she chose truth, justice, and protection for the innocent. Her story teaches us, never ignore the signs,
I just
and
don't
never forget
understand
your
why you
worth.
kept this from me for
If
so
this story
long.
moved you,
I was
please
scared.
give us one like and one share to support
Please,
the
just
channel
turn that
and
off.
inspire our next stories. Thanks for watching.
We can explain
The
everything.
champagne flute felt like ice in Amelia S. hand, a sharp contrast to the anger boiling under her Chanel jacket. Tonight, the charade was over. For months, her husband Julian, the head of Beaumont Corp., had been a ghost in their perfect home. His excuses were as cheap as the silk negligee she found in his briefcase, a color she would never wear. Now, she was following him to the ridiculously expensive Lee Range restaurant. Her heart pounded against her ribs, a countdown to the end. He thought he was closing a new deal tonight. And he was, just not the one he was planning. Amelia Beaumont smoothed her custom maternity dress, the soft cashmere brushing against her 7-month belly. To everyone else, her life was a picture of luxury and success. Their penthouse apartment, with its sweeping city views, was proof of her husband Julian's drive and ambition. He was the handsome chief executive officer of Beaumont Corp., a massive real estate and tech company he inherited and grew aggressively. She played the part of the elegant, supportive wife, soon to be the mother of his heir. At least, that's what the society pages and their perfect Instagram posts said. But in reality, their perfect marriage was falling apart at the seams, thread by painful thread. Julian, who used to be so loving, had grown cold and distant. His late nights at the office became all-nighters, and his explanations were always vague and impatient. The smell of a Dior perfume she didn't own seemed to cling to his shirts, a constant, fragrant reminder of his betrayal. But Amelia wasn't stupid. She had seen how other women looked at Julian, with a hungry look in their eyes and calculated smiles. He was handsome, powerful, and had a confidence that drew people in. But she thought their bond, built over 10 years, was stronger than that. Their baby boy, who they'd already named Ethan, was supposed to be a fresh start. Instead, the baby's upcoming birth seemed to be pushing Julian even farther away. The clues started small. A quiet phone call Julian took on the balcony, his voice low and intimate in a way it hadn't been with her in months. An expensive receipt from a jeweler for a client gift, even though his company wasn't known for giving out diamond necklaces. Then there were the texts that would light up his phone screen, which he'd quickly flip over, always from a number he hadn't saved. Each little thing was like a tiny stab of ice to Amelia's heart, a cold dread filling her body. She remembered when they first met, how he pursued her relentlessly, showering her with love and promises of a perfect future. He'd been her support systems, especially after her parents died, leaving her with a good inheritance, but feeling deeply alone. Julian had filled that emptiness, or so she had thought now. She wondered if he'd just covered it up with a thin layer of gold. The final proof of his affair came not from a private eye, but from Julian's own mistake. Last week, she was looking for some company papers for him in his home office, and she found a hidden drawer in his antique desk. Inside, tucked away with old stock certificates, was a small velvet box. It didn't hold a company award. It held a huge, pear-shaped diamond engagement ring, way too flashy for her taste. And certainly not a gift for her. Next to it was a handwritten note. To my dearest S, for our forever. J.S. Sophia. The name crawled into her memory from a comment on a gossip blog she had ignored weeks ago. A rumor about Julian being seen with Sophia Rossi, a young actress known for charming rich men. Amelia S. blood turned to ice. The ring wasn't for a client. It was for his mistress. The pain hit her like a punch to the gut, knocking the wind out of her. For days, she just went through the motions, the secret poisoning every moment. Then, Ethan kicked inside her, a reminder of the life she was carrying, a life Julian was throwing away. It was that kick, that innocent little life that finally gave her strength. She wasn't going to fall apart. She refused to be the sad, forgotten wife. She would fight, not just for herself, but for her son. She had made a secret appointment at a private clinic. The results of the paternity test were now sitting in her Hermes Birkin bag, a ticking time bomb. The single piece of paper felt incredibly heavy, full of truth and betrayal. Tonight was Julian's big business dinner with investors from Japan. He had been so careful getting ready, picking out his most expensive suit and a new silk tie. He even pretended to feel bad about leaving her alone, giving her a quick peck on the cheek that felt more like a dismissal than a kiss. "Don't wait up, darling. This could go late. It's for the new Tokyo Tower project." Amelia had just smiled, a calm, peaceful look that hid the hurricane of anger inside her. "Of course, Julian. Go close that deal." She waited an hour after he left, her calm a fragile dam, holding back a flood of emotion. Then she slipped out of their penthouse. Not in the chauffeured Bentley he always made her use, but in a simple taxi. She told the driver to take her to L'Orange, one of the city's most exclusive and romantic restaurants, famous for its private atmosphere and insanely high prices. It was the same place Julian had taken her for their 5th wedding anniversary, the place where he had promised to love her forever. The irony was hard to swallow. As the taxi stopped a short distance from the restaurant's flower-covered entrance, Amelia's heart pounded. Valets in sharp uniforms were parking a line of luxury cars. She saw Julian's custom black Rolls-Royce Phantom parked right by the entrance. He was here with her. Taking a deep breath, she paid the driver, her hand surprisingly steady as she grabbed her purse. The cool night air didn't cool the fire inside her. Each step toward that restaurant was a step into the unknown, a step toward a fight that would change everything. The doorman recognized her and greeted her politely. "Good evening, Madame Beaumont. Mr. Beaumont is already inside. Shall I show you to his table?" Amelia gave him a tight, mysterious smile. "No, thank you, Jean-Pierre. I know where he is. I'm just here to make a delivery." She walked right past him, her eyes scanning the dimly lit, fancy dining room. L'Orange was built for privacy, with hidden booths and flowers everywhere, and there, in the most private corner table, the one with a view of the Japanese garden, sat Julian. He was leaning in, looking charming and energetic. Across from him, in the soft candlelight, was a young, beautiful woman with long, dark hair and a red dress that clung to her Sophia Rossi. Amelia watched them, hidden from view, for a few moments that felt like forever. She saw Julian reach across the table and put his hand over Sophia's. She saw him talking, his lips moving with a seriousness that made Amelia's stomach turn. Then, the moment she both feared and weirdly wanted to see, Julian got down on one knee and pulled that same pear-shaped diamond ring from his pocket. The entire world seemed to wobble. The sound of other diners, the clinking of glasses, and the music from a string quartet all faded into a buzzing noise in her ears. This was it. The ultimate betrayal, happening in the same place he had once promised her everything. Her calm composure, which she had held onto so tightly, was about to break. But then she felt Ethan kick again, a small, strong reminder. Not here. Not yet. With a new, ice-cold determination, Amelia smoothed her dress, gripped her handbag, and started her slow, steady walk toward their table. Her footsteps were silent on the thick carpet, but to Amelia, they sounded like thunder, announcing the storm that was about to hit. Walking across the L'Orange dining room felt like crossing a minefield. Every table of happy, unaware diners was a silent witness to what she was about to do. Amelia's vision narrowed, focusing only on Julian and Sophia and their little romantic scene, which looked like a sick joke. Julian was still on one knee, a proud smile on his face, holding the diamond ring up like a trophy. Sophia had her hand over her mouth in that dramatic way, her eyes wide with what looked like surprise, though Amelia couldn't be sure if it was real. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Amelia reached their table just as Julian was about to slide the ring onto Sophia's finger. "Julian," she said. Her voice was surprisingly calm, but sharp enough to cut right through the air. It wasn't loud, but it hit with the force of a slap. Julian froze, his head snapping up to look at her. The smile vanished from his face, replaced by a look of pure, horrified shock. The color drained from his face, leaving him a pasty gray. His wide, panicked eyes darted from Amelia to Sophia, and then back to Amelia, as if his brain couldn't process that she was actually there. He looked like a kid caught red-handed, not just with a cookie, but with the entire bakery. Startled, Sophia snatched her hand away from Julian. Her surprise turned to confusion, then annoyance, as she saw Amelia, very pregnant and with perfectly arched eyebrows. "Julian, who is this?" she asked, her voice a little too high, revealing the insecurity under her glamorous mask. The tables around them started going quiet as the emotional temperature shifted. The clinking of silverware stopped. Conversations faded away. All eyes were slowly and discreetly turning towards the drama unfolding in the corner. Jean-Pierre, the manager, hovered anxiously by a service station. His professional calm was clearly shattered. Amelia ignored Sophia. Her gaze was locked on Julian, pinning him like a bug under a microscope. "Having a crucial business dinner, darling?" she asked, her voice sickly sweet and far more terrifying than any shout. "Forging new partnerships for Beaumont Corp, are we? Or just merging assets?" Julian scrambled to his feet, knocking his chair. "Amelia, what are you doing here?" he stammered, his usual confident boardroom voice completely gone. He shot a desperate look around the restaurant, painfully aware of the attention they were getting. "This is not what it looks like." Amelia let out a short, humorless laugh. "Oh, I think it is exactly what it looks like, Julian. You on one knee, proposing to your mistress with a ring I assume was not bought on your corporate expense account." She paused, letting her words hang in the air, heavy and damning. "Though with your track record, I would not be surprised." Sophia gasped, finally understanding the horrifying picture. Her face, which moments before was bright with joy, was now a mix of anger and growing humiliation. "Mistress, Julian, what is she talking about? You told me you were divorced, that your marriage ended years ago." Her voice rose, attracting even more attention. "Quiet, Sophia," Julian hissed, his eyes flashing with anger, but fear was still his main expression. He turned back to Amelia, trying a calmer tone. "Amelia, please, let's not do this here. Let's go home and discuss this." "Home?" Amelia repeated, her voice dripping with disgust. "You mean the home you share with me? The one where our son's nursery is waiting? Or maybe you have another home I don't know about?" She took a deliberate step closer, her presence filling the small space. "We have nothing to talk about, Julian. Not anymore. I think your actions tonight have spoken for themselves." She reached into her Birkin bag. The restaurant was now completely silent, the air thick and suffocating. Julian watched her hand, his eyes filled with a new kind of dread. What else did she know? What was she about to do? Instead of a weapon or divorce papers, Amelia pulled out a crisp, folded document in a simple envelope. She held it up for a moment, letting him see it. "You see, Julian," she continued, her voice now filled with a cold, hard clarity. "While you were busy planning your romantic evening and your new future, I was doing a little planning of my own." She looked from Julian's pale face to Sophia's confused one. "He told you he was divorced. That's rich. He has been telling me he is working late to secure our child's future." With a steady hand, Amelia reached forward and placed the envelope on the clean white tablecloth right between Julian's untouched champagne and Sophia's half-eaten risotto. The envelope landed with a soft thud that felt as loud as a gunshot in the tense silence. "What is that?" Julian finally managed to whisper, staring at the envelope as if it were a venomous snake. Sophia, equally frozen, leaned forward slightly. Amelia smiled a chilling, triumphant smile. "That, Julian, my dear deceitful husband," she announced, her voice carrying to nearby tables, "is a prenatal paternity test for our baby, the one I am carrying." She paused for maximum effect, her gaze sweeping over them both. "It confirms with 99.999% certainty that you are the father." A collective gasp rippled through the other diners. Sophia recoiled as if she had been slapped, her eyes wide with horror, finally understanding the depth of the lies she was caught in. She was not the cherished fiancée. She was the other woman, involved with a married man, whose wife was heavily pregnant. Her dream proposal had just become a public spectacle of her role in a messy affair. Amelia continued, her voice unwavering. "So as you start on this new chapter with Sophia," she said, glancing dismissively at the younger woman, "I thought you should both have all the relevant information. Consider it my wedding gift to you both." She did not wait for a response. She did not need to. The sight of Julian's utterly devastated face, the ring now abandoned on the table beside the damning envelope, and Sophia's tear-streaked, horrified expression was satisfaction enough. Turning on her heel, her posture regal despite the emotional turmoil, Amelia Beaumont walked away. She did not look back. She could feel the weight of every stare in the restaurant on her, but she did not care. The silence held for a moment longer, then erupted into a mess of shocked whispers and sneaky phone calls. The Beaumont scandal had just gone public in the most dramatic way imaginable. As she exited the restaurant, Jean-Pierre rushed to open the door. His face is a mask of professional concern mixed with awe. "Madame Beaumont, are you all right? Can I call you a car?" Amelia paused, took a deep, steadying breath of the cool night air, the first truly clean breath she felt she had taken in months. A faint, genuine smile touched her lips. "Thank you, Jean-Pierre. I can manage. I feel remarkably well, actually." She walked towards the curb, not waiting for a valet, and raised her hand. A taxi, as if summoned, immediately pulled over. As she settled in the back, she allowed herself a single silent tear, not of sadness, but of release. The first battle was won. The war, she knew, was just beginning, but tonight she had dropped the bomb, and the fallout was Julian's to navigate. The immediate aftermath inside was chaotic. Julian Beaumont, usually so poised, stood frozen. The DNA report was like a scarlet letter on the white tablecloth. Sophia Rossi, her face streaked with mascara, had burst into loud, accusing sobs. "You lied to me, Julian. You said she was your past. You swore it!" Her voice was no longer the seductive purr he knew, but was sharp and laced with the bitter taste of betrayal. The restaurant, a place of quiet elegance just moments before, now buzzed with 1,000 hushed, excited conversations. Smartphones that were at first raised discreetly were now more obviously capturing the scene. Julian could almost feel the flashes of his digital downfall. His carefully constructed world, his reputation, and his perfect new life were all crumbling around him, live streamed to the city's gossips. "Sophia, for God's sake, keep your voice down," Julian finally hissed, his panic turning into a desperate attempt at damage control. He grabbed her arm, trying to pull her back into the chair. "We need to leave now." "Leave after this humiliation?" she shrieked, pulling her arm away. "You made me a fool." The pear-shaped diamond ring lay on the table, forgotten, its sparkle now seeming tacky and tainted. Jean-Pierre, now with 2 burly security guards who usually dealt with paparazzi outside, not fighting customers inside, approached cautiously. "Mr. Beaumont, Ms. Rossi, perhaps it would be best if you continued this discussion somewhere else." His tone was polite, but firm. The restaurant's reputation was also at stake. Julian, red-faced and trembling with rage and mortification, threw a wad of cash on the table, far more than the bill could possibly be. "Keep the change," he snarled, grabbing Sophia's arm again, this time with a force that could not be argued with. He practically dragged her through the restaurant, past the gawking diners, their whispers following him, like a swarm of angry bees. The shameful exit was a stark contrast to his usual confident stride. Amelia, meanwhile, was miles away, the city lights blurring past the taxi window. The adrenaline was starting to wear off, leaving her deeply tired, but also with a strange sense of empowerment. She had faced the monster and landed the first blow. She had not screamed or cried or pleaded. She had delivered the truth with a chilling precision that she knew would haunt Julian far more than any emotional outburst. Her phone buzzed. It was her lawyer, Marcus Thorne, a man known for his discretion and his ruthlessness in high-stakes divorce cases. "It is done," Amelia said, her voice calm. "Phase 1 is complete. I will have the papers filed first thing in the morning." "Amelia," Marcus replied, "all business. I have already alerted my public relations contact. We will control this narrative, not Julian." Control. That was the key. Julian had controlled her life for too long, cloaking his manipulations in a show of care and affection. No more. Back at their penthouse, which now felt cold and alien, Amelia walked through the rooms. Each object was a reminder of a life built on lies. The photographs of them smiling, the expensive art Julian had chosen, the king-sized bed they no longer really shared. She went straight to the nursery, Ethan's room. The soft blues and grays, the carefully chosen crib, the tiny clothes folded neatly in drawers. This was real. This was a battle worth fighting. The news from the LRA incident went viral. By morning, it was the top story on every gossip blog. "Beaumont CEO's proposal crashed by pregnant wife," screamed one headline. "DNA drama at LRA. Julian Beaumont's double life exposed," read another. Beaumont Corp's stock, which was always tied to its CEO's image, took a small but immediate dive. Julian's phone had been ringing non-stop since he managed to escape the restaurant with a frantic Sophia. His powerful mother, Eleanor Beaumont, the tough matriarch who still controlled the family and the board, was the first to finally get through to him. "Julian, what in God's name have you done?" Eleanor's voice was like ice, with zero motherly warmth. "At LRA, a proposal with a pregnant wife at home. Are you trying to destroy everything your father and I built by yourself?" "Mother, it's complicated," Julian started, but Eleanor cut him off. "Complicated? It sounds like a common, dirty mess, Julian. A mess you made, and a mess you will fix. Or I'll fix it for you, and trust me, you won't like my methods." The Beaumont name was everything to her, and Julian had just disgraced it. She wasn't worried about her son's feelings or Amelia's pain, but about the family legacy and its bottom line. Sophia Rossi, at the same time, was having her own crisis. She was hiding out in her stylish downtown apartment, an apartment Amelia now figured Julian was paying for. She was taking calls from her agent, her old friends, and tons of reporters. Her fairy tale story had just turned into a complete disaster. She had really believed Julian was about to divorce Amelia. He had told her a believable story of a loveless marriage, of a wife who was cold and distant. He never once mentioned the pregnancy. The public shame was crushing. Was she a victim? In a way, yes. She was lied to and used, but she also chose to get involved with a man she knew was separated, but not completely free. Maybe her ambition made her ignore all the red flags. Amelia, however, was not fighting this battle completely on her own. She got an unexpected message later that day. It was from a name she barely remembered, Chloe Dubois, a former executive assistant at Beaumont Corp, who was fired without much of a reason a year ago. The office rumors said she was incompetent, but Chloe had always seemed smart and capable to Amelia whenever they talked at company parties. The message was direct. "Mrs. Beaumont, I read about what happened. I'm not surprised by Julian's behavior. There are things you probably don't know about him, things that go beyond his affairs. If you want to know the truth, I'm willing to meet. It won't cost you anything. Let's just call it a late severance package for both of us." Amelia was intrigued. This was an ally, and one who knew things from the inside. Chloe had worked right beside Julian. She'd seen how his office worked, his deals, his moods. What things beyond his affairs could she possibly mean? Amelia set up a meeting with Chloe at a quiet cafe, far away from the nosy city elite. Chloe Dubois was a small woman with sharp eyes and a very serious attitude. She'd brought a sleek, encrypted Kingston Iron Key USB drive. "Julian is more than just a cheat, Mrs. Beaumont." Chloe started, her voice quiet and serious. "He's reckless. He cuts corners. He makes enemies. I was fired because I found some problems in the funding reports for the new Shanghai development project. Very big problems. I tried to tell the chief financial officer about it, but I was shut down. 2 days later, I was fired with a big non-disclosure agreement and a quiet threat about my future career." Chloe slid the Kingston drive across the table. "I made copies before they erased my computer. It's all on there. Fake invoices, payments to shell companies, and messages that suggest much more than just shady business deals, maybe even illegal ones." Amelia just stared at the USB drive. This was so much bigger than she ever imagined. She had started this to expose a cheating husband and to protect her and her son's future. But if what Chloe was saying was true, Julian wasn't just a bad person. He was very likely a corporate criminal, too. The DNA report had been a personal bombshell. This USB drive could be an atomic bomb, capable of destroying the entire Beaumont empire. "Why are you giving this to me?" Amelia asked, her thoughts racing. Chloe's face was hard. "Because he ruined my career, Mrs. Beaumont. And honestly, he's a terrible person who deserves to have everything he built on lies taken from him. You have the money and the reason to use this information. I just want to watch him get what he deserves." Amelia picked up the USB drive. It felt heavier than the DNA report. The stakes had just been raised through the roof. Her fight for personal justice was now tangled up with a potential corporate takedown. She had the weapon. Now she had to figure out how to use it without setting off an explosion that would also hurt her own child's inheritance. The drama from LRA was only the beginning. A new, much more dangerous fight had just begun, and Amelia, with her surprising new ally, was getting ready for a much bigger war. The confirmation of the paternity test, which Amelia's lawyer strategically leaked to a few media outlets, was basically old news by the time it officially came out. Amelia's dramatic announcement at LRA had already convinced the public that Julian was the father. The real point of the leak was a little more clever. It made Amelia look incredibly prepared, a woman who came armed with undeniable proof before she made her move. It quietly highlighted Julian's deception. He hadn't just cheated. He had knowingly risked his own child's legitimacy and financial security. Beaumont Corp's stock, which took that first hit, was now very unstable. Board members, who were already scared of Eleanor Beaumont's cold anger, started having secret meetings. Julian's leadership, once called visionary, was now being called reckless and unstable. His personal life was spilling into his professional one, and it was becoming a stain that wouldn't wash out. He tried to release a public apology, a statement carefully written by a crisis management firm. It expressed deep regret for the pain he caused his family and promised investors that his personal life would not affect the company, but almost no one believed it. The apology sounded empty, forced, and worst of all, it came way too late. Julian himself was a man under attack. He was sleeping in a hotel, unable to face Amelia, and not wanting to go back to the empty penthouse. Sophia Rossi, after a few days of crying, blaming him, and threatening to sell her story to the tabloids, had suddenly gone completely silent. Julian, through his lawyers, had offered her a very large amount of money to stay quiet and quickly disappear from his life. The very last thing he needed was Sophia making this raging fire even worse. He wasn't sure if she took the deal, but the fact that her angry social media posts stopped suggested she was at least thinking about it. He felt a small stab of what might have been guilt for what he did to Sophia. After all, he had lied to her constantly. But that feeling was quickly pushed aside by his own desperate need to survive. Amelia, led by her lawyer Marcus Thorne, and now holding Chloe Dubois's explosive Kingston USB drive, started her own quiet investigation. Marcus hired a team of forensic accountants, the absolute best in the business, to analyze the data Chloe gave them. They worked in complete secret, meeting in plain-looking rental offices, far away from anyone connected to Beaumont. Chloe was not exaggerating, Marcus told Amelia a week later, his face serious. The Shanghai development project is a complete disaster. We're finding patterns of fake billing, deals with offshore accounts that make no sense, and what look like kickbacks. Julian hasn't just been sloppy. He's been methodically stealing from his own company and his own shareholders for years. The amount of money was stunning. Millions, maybe even tens of millions, had been siphoned away. This wasn't just about paying for a fancy lifestyle with a mistress. This was pure greed on a massive scale. Amelia felt a cold knot tighten in her gut. The man she had loved, the father of her child, was just a common thief in a designer suit. Her own grief was a complicated, ever-changing thing. There were moments of deep sadness for the life she thought she had, for the man she believed Julian was. But those moments were being replaced by a growing, hard anger and a firm resolve. She wasn't just fighting for a fair divorce payment anymore. She was fighting to protect her son from being tied to a criminal and to save whatever she could from the coming disaster. Chloe, her unexpected partner, turned out to be extremely helpful. She had a deep knowledge of how Beaumont Corp worked, who the important people were, and most importantly, Julian's habits and weaknesses. Julian always had a soft spot for vanity projects. Chloe explained during one of their secret meetings. The Shanghai Tower was his baby. He personally managed every part of it, which also meant he could mess with the numbers with fewer people checking his work. He also likes to use a specific offshore bank in the Cayman Islands called Trident Trust. He thinks no one can touch him there. This information was pure gold. The forensic accountants immediately focused their search on tracing the money trail to Trident Trust. It was a slow, grinding process, like chipping away at a mountain with a spoon. But slowly, a clearer picture of Julian's financial crimes began to form. And while Amelia was digging into his financial treachery, the story of Sophia Rossi took a turn nobody expected. She hadn't just taken Julian's money and run. Instead, she had hired her own lawyer, a famously tough attorney known for representing women in high-profile scandals, and was preparing her own attack. It turns out Sophia wasn't just some actress looking for fame. Her family back in Italy had been financially destroyed years ago by a ruthless property developer in a deal that looked eerily similar to some of Beaumont Corp's own aggressive tactics. Sophia came to the city not just seeking fame, but with a secret agenda to get close to powerful men in the real estate world, to learn their methods, maybe even to find a way to get some kind of justice for her family. Julian, with his charm and his powerful position, had been the perfect target. Her feelings for him might have been real at some point, but they were always mixed with this deeper, hidden goal. Sophia, it seemed, had her own secrets, her own reasons for getting involved with Julian Beaumont. She hadn't known about Amelia's pregnancy, and she was genuinely furious about that lie. But her main goal wasn't to become Mrs. Julian Beaumont. It was something much more complex. She didn't contact Amelia directly, but her lawyer began making quiet inquiries, testing the waters for an alliance. Two women betrayed by the same man, each with her own arsenal of devastating information. The pressure on Julian was building from all sides. His mother, Elelenina, was now actively working to push him out of Beaumont Corp. She called an emergency board meeting, proposing they appoint a temporary CEO to guide the company through this uncertain time. Julian, still a major shareholder, fought back, But his support on the board was crumbling fast. His father, a man who had always cared more about charity than business in his later years, was reportedly deeply disappointed and had pulled his usually strong support for his son. Then came another twist, a more personal one, that Julian never saw coming during a fiery argument with his mother, where she accused him of destroying the family name. Elelenina let a piece of information slip that Julian had never known. His perfect father, the man whose legacy Elelenina so fiercely protected, had also had a major affair years ago, one that had nearly destroyed their own marriage and the company. Elelenina had covered it all up, managed the scandal, and saved the Beaumont name, all while Julian was a child, completely unaware. "You're just like him," Elelenina had spat, her voice trembling with a lifetime of buried resentment. "Reckless, arrogant, thinking with what's between your legs instead of your head. Only he was smart enough not to get caught proposing in public to his mistress while his wife was pregnant." The revelation stunned Julian. His father, his idol, was flawed in the exact same way he was. It didn't excuse his own actions, but it added a layer of bitter irony to his situation. The Beaumont legacy, it seemed, was built on more than just bricks and mortar. It was built on secrets and expertly managed lies. Through her own channels, Marcus Thorne's extensive network, Amelia heard whispers of this old family secret. It didn't change her plan, but it did make her realize the Beaumont empire was perhaps even more rotten at its core than she at first thought. It wasn't just Julian, it was a generational pattern. The unraveling was happening faster than anyone could have predicted. The DNA test was the catalyst, the public shamings was the fuel. But it was the secrets, both financial and personal, now bubbling to the surface that threatened to bring the entire thing crashing down. And Amelia, holding the key to Julian's biggest secret, the financial fraud, was poised to decide just how much pressure to apply. The question was no longer if Julian would fall, but how far, and who he would take down with him. The forensic accountants, after weeks of relentless digging, finally struck gold. Or rather, they found a very specific and very damning wire transfer. A multi-million-dollar payment from one of Beaumont Corp's Shanghai shell corporations, funneled through a trust in the Cayman Islands, to a private art dealer in Geneva. The reference for the payment was acquisition, Le Jardin's secret. Amelia frowned when Marcus Thorne presented this to her. A secret garden? What does that mean? Is he buying rare plants now? Not exactly, Marcus said, a grim smile playing on his lips. We did some digging. Le Jardin's secret is not a plant. It's the unofficial title of a privately commissioned, extremely controversial, and highly illegal collection of altered, old master paintings. The artist, a disgraced prodigy known only as Nightingale, takes original Renaissance and Baroque masterpieces, often stolen or of questionable origin, and digitally remixes them, embedding modern, often shocking, imagery inside them. They are then sold on the black art market for astronomical sums to a very select, very private clientele. It's money laundering, art desecration, and trafficking of stolen goods all rolled into one very ugly package. Amelia felt a wave of nausea. Julian, the suave businessman, the patron of respectable art galleries, was involved in this. It was a level of depravity she hadn't even imagined. It was not just about financial fraud to enrich himself. It was about something darker, more illegal, a perversion of beauty and history for profit. The Nightingale pieces are considered digital gold, Marcus continued, untraceable if handled correctly, and their value only goes up within that shadowy world. This is not just about Beaumont Corp money, Amelia. This is felony territory on an international scale. This goes far beyond the SEC. We're talking Interpol. This was the true bomb. The DNA reveal, the proposal, the corporate embezzlement, those were scandals. This was a potential criminal indictment that could send Julian to prison for a very long time. But Before Amelia could fully process the implications of this art-world underworld, another far more personal twist emerged, one that blindsided everyone. It came not from financial records, but from a distraught Sophia Rossi. After weeks of silence punctuated by legal moves from her attorney, Sophia requested an urgent, secret meeting with Amelia. No lawyers present, just the two of them. Amelia, wary but also intensely curious, agreed. They met in the neutral territory of a private suite at the St. Regis Hotel, a place known for its discretion. Sophia was a changed woman. The glamorous, confident facade was gone, replaced by a raw, visible fear. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Her hands trembled as she clutched a small, worn, leather-bound journal. "Mrs. Beaumont, Amelia," she began, her voice shaking. "I know you have every reason to hate me, and I deserve it. I was foolish. I was ambitious, and I allowed myself to believe Julian's lies." "What do you want, Sophia?" Amelia asked, her tone cool but not entirely unkind. She saw a woman who was clearly terrified, not just humiliated. "Julian, he's not just a liar, Amelia. He's dangerous." Sophia's voice dropped to a whisper. "When I told him I was pregnant a few days before your announcement at l'Orangerie, he wasn't happy." Amelia's blood ran cold. "You're pregnant?" This was a complication she had not anticipated, another child caught in Julian's web. Sophia nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "Yes, about 8 weeks now. When I told him, he changed. He became cold, almost menacing. He told me it was inconvenient. He said I needed to take care of it, and that he would arrange everything." Amelia felt a surge of protective maternal anger, not just for her own child, but for Sophia's too. "But that's not the worst of it," Sophia continued, her voice cracking. She opened the journal. "My family, we have a history of a rare genetic condition. It's called Fabry disease. It's carried by women but primarily affects men. My brother died from it. My uncle too. There's a specific genetic marker. Before I got serious with Julian, when I thought we might have a future, I had him tested secretly. I got a sample of his DNA from a glass he used at my apartment. I sent it to a private lab in Switzerland that specializes in rare genetic disorders, using a fake name." Amelia listened, stunned into silence. This was beyond anything she could have imagined. Sophia's finger traced a line in her journal. The results came back right after everything exploded. Julian doesn't have the active disease, but Amelia, he's a carrier of the mutated GLA gene, the exact same rare variant that runs in my maternal line. The doctors said the chances of 2 unrelated people carrying the same rare variant of this gene are astronomically small, almost impossible, unless they are related, Amelia finished, her mind reeling. Sophia nodded, her face ashen. "The lab here, after I told them about the Fabry possibility following my positive pregnancy test and what I knew from the Swiss lab, ran a more detailed panel on my baby's preliminary DNA. They also had Julian's sample from the paternity test you initiated. My lawyer managed to get the detailed genomic data from it, arguing for Julian's full health disclosure given the circumstances. They compared his full genetic markers, not just the ones for paternity, with mine. Amelia, Julian Beaumont is my half-brother. The truth hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Julian and Sophia, the lovers, were brother and sister. They shared a father. His father and my mother, Sophia whispered, tears flooding her face. My mother had an affair years ago with a powerful, wealthy businessman before she met the man I called Dad. She never told me his name. She took that secret to her grave. But it had to have been Julian's father. The dates matched perfectly. The DNA results were undeniable. The baby I'm carrying, oh my God, the baby. She collapsed into sobs. Amelia felt the world just drop away from under her. This was more than a messy divorce and some corporate crime. This was a straight-up Greek tragedy. Julian wasn't just a cheating husband and a criminal. He was in a relationship with his own half-sister, and he had no idea. And now Sophia was pregnant with his child, who was also his nephew or niece. The first DNA test Amelia had used, the one proving Julian was Ethan's father, seemed trivial compared to this horrifying mess. It explained Julian's gut-wrenching, panicked reaction when Sophia said she was pregnant. It wasn't just bad timing. It was probably a deep, subconscious disgust, or maybe a terrifying suspicion if he already knew about his father's affairs. "Does Julian know?" Amelia asked, her voice just a whisper. Sophia shook her head. "No, I just got the final results this morning. I don't know what to do. He's capable of anything, especially now, if this truth comes out on top of everything else." Amelia finally understood Sophia's absolute terror. Julian, backed into a corner, could become violent. The Beaumont name was already stained, but a scandal involving incest would utterly destroy it. Elelonina Beaumont would probably have a heart attack. This wasn't just Amelia versus Julian anymore. It now involved Sophia, 2 unborn babies, and a secret that could cause unimaginable pain. Amelia took a deep breath. Her own plans for getting justice suddenly felt twisted and wrong in this monstrous new light. The information about the art smuggling was a powerful weapon, enough to make sure Julian faced the law. But this was different. This family secret was so dark that exposing it would hurt everyone, including the innocent children. "Sophia," Amelia said, her voice surprisingly soft, "we need to be extremely careful. For the children's sake, yours and mine, the whole situation had changed. Amelia was no longer just the wife who had been wronged. She was now the guardian of a terrible secret that made her own problems with Julian seem like part of a much bigger tragedy. She still wanted justice for his financial crimes and for betraying her. But how could she use the weapon of his art smuggling when this even bigger disaster was looming? The situation had reached a critical, terrifying point. Julian Beaumont was a man standing on a cliff, with no idea the abyss was right beneath him, and Amelia, along with a terrified Sophia, held the power to either push him off the edge or find a way through the wreckage that protected the innocent. The choices she made in the next few days would shape all of their futures. The weight of Sophia's confession settled on Amelia like a crushing physical burden. Julian's web of lies had twisted into something much uglier, a Shakespearean tragedy filled with incest and innocent lives hanging by a thread. Her clear, burning need for justice was now clouded by horrifying ethical questions. But Amelia knew one thing for sure. The news that Julian and Sophia were half-siblings could never become public gossip. The scandal would be too devastating, and the psychological harm to Sophia and both unborn children would be permanent. It was a secret that, for the sake of basic human decency, had to be contained and handled with extreme care. But Julian's other crimes, the corporate fraud, the illegal art deals, that was different. Those were choices he made, and victims he deliberately created outside of their twisted family drama. For those actions, there had to be consequences. So Amelia, with advice from Marcus Thorne, came up with a new strategy. First, she had to help Sophia, who was just as much a victim as anyone else. Amelia quietly arranged for Sophia to get the best legal and emotional support. Terrified but determined, Sophia agreed to Amelia's plan. She would secretly move far away from the city, far from Julian, to have her baby in peace. The full truth of the child's father would be a guarded secret, shared only with a few trusted people. Her own family's rare genetic condition, Fabry disease, gave her a believable and tragic reason to protect her child from any connection to the Beaumonts. Next up was Julian. Amelia decided not to immediately leak the art smuggling information to the authorities. While that would get Julian arrested, it could also cause Beaumont Corp to completely implode. That would hurt innocent employees and reduce the money available for her, Ethan, and any settlement for Sophia's baby. So, she chose a more controlled takedown. She arranged a meeting not with Julian, but with his mother, Elelonina Beaumont. They met at Amelia's penthouse, a clear power play. Amelia was no longer the quiet, agreeable wife. She was in charge now. Elelenina arrived with a look of cold composure, but her eyes showed she was exhausted. She probably expected to talk about divorce terms or face more public shaming. She was not ready for what Amelia had planned. Amelia calmly presented Elelenina with a summary of the illegal financial dealings. She didn't name the art operation, but she hinted at illegal international business that would attract global law enforcement. Julian hasn't just been unfaithful, Elelenina, Amelia said firmly. He has been stealing from Beaumont Corp for years. He has put the company at enormous legal and financial risk. I have proof that cannot be denied. Elelenina's composure finally shattered. The Beaumont name, her entire life's work, was at risk of complete ruin. "What do you want, Amelia?" she asked. "I want Julian gone from Beaumont Corp. Permanently," Amelia replied. "I want him to have no control, no influence, and no access to its money ever again. I want a divorce settlement that reflects the true scale of his lies and secures my son's financial future and that of his other child, though he will never hear the full story from me." Amelia paused, letting that sink in. "And I want him to face consequences, but in a way that does the least damage to the company that carries my son's name." Then she played her ultimate trump card, though Elelenina would never know its true, horrifying nature. "There are other secrets, Elelenina. Secrets about Julian, about your family, that are far darker than financial crimes. Secrets that, if they came out, wouldn't just destroy Julian. They would burn the Beaumont legacy to ashes. I have no desire to cause that kind of destruction, mainly for the children's sake. But my silence depends on your full cooperation in removing Julian and cleaning up the mess he has made." Elelenina Beaumont, a woman who had survived countless scandals, stared at Amelia. She saw not her son's wife, but a powerful opponent holding all the cards. She didn't dare ask what the darker secrets were. The chilling certainty in Amelia's eyes was all she needed to see. She knew Amelia was not bluffing. The fear of the unknown was a powerful weapon. A deal was made. Elelenina used her immense influence on the board to orchestrate Julian's complete removal from Beaumont Corp. He was forced to resign from everything. His shares were put into a blind trust, with large portions going to Amelia and a separate, private trust for Sophia's child. It was framed as a kind gesture from the family. Of course, Julian fought back with the rage of a trapped animal. He made threats. He screamed. He even tried to appeal to Amelia's old feelings for him, but it was too late. His own mother, armed with the threat of Amelia's dark secrets and the real proof of his financial crimes, was unstoppable. Julian Beaumont, the corporate giant, was thrown out. He avoided jail for art trafficking because Amelia held that back as leverage. However, the evidence of his corporate fraud was as anonymously leaked to the Securities and Exchange Commission by Marcus Thorne. The investigation was managed carefully to save the company, but it resulted in huge fines for Beaumont Corp, now under new leadership. Julian was forced to pay restitution and was banned from being a corporate leader for life. He was publicly humiliated, his reputation completely destroyed. He lost his empire, his wife, his mistresses, and his status in society. He was just a wealthy, broken man, haunted by the life he ruined, never knowing the terrifying truth about Sophia or the deadly secret he almost discovered. Amelia, in the meantime, finalized her divorce. She received a very large settlement, not from greed, but to secure her son's future and maybe start her own companies. She sold the lavish penthouse, a place full of lies, and bought a beautiful sunlit home in a quiet, family-friendly area. She gave birth to Ethan James Beaumont, a healthy and beautiful baby boy. Holding him, she knew every single painful step and hard decision had been worth it. She was free, strong, and a mother. Sophia Rossi also delivered a healthy child, a little girl named Grace, in a small coastal town in California. She began a new life centered on her daughter, using money from a private trust to build a stable future, far from the Beaumont family's shadows. She and Amelia kept in quiet, respectful touch, connected by their shared past and the secrets they both kept. Thankfully, the Fabry disease gene wasn't active in Grace, though Sophia knew she'd always have to be watchful. Amelia didn't just hide away in motherhood. With Chloe Dubois, now a close friend and business partner, she started to look for new opportunities. Using her settlement and sharp mind, she invested in ethical startup companies focused on sustainability and doing good. She found a new purpose in building something positive, a legacy for Ethan that wasn't stained by his father's mistakes. Beaumont Corp, under new management and humbled by the scandal, went through a major reorganization. Elelenina Beaumont retired, handing the company to professionals who prized transparency and ethics, or at least pretended to. The brand survived, but it was changed forever, a lesson in how fragile power can be. Amelia Beaumont had walked into Laurent as a wife who had been betrayed. She came out a warrior, a protector, and a survivor. She had faced the darkness in Julian and his family's past, and chose a path that, while complicated, protected the innocent and sought justice instead of simple revenge. Her new life wasn't just about healing, it was about rewriting her own story, and her son's, on her own terms with strength, integrity, and hard-earned wisdom. The gilded cage was gone. In its place was a future built on truth. And that's our story, a tale of betrayal, strength, and the shocking secrets hiding just beneath the surface. Amelia's journey from a heartbroken wife to a powerful woman shows that even when faced with terrible lies, strength and truth can create a new beginning. The story's twists, from the DNA test at Lorraine to the deep family secrets, remind us that real life can be much stranger and more dramatic than any movie. What do you think of Amelia's decisions? Could a man like Julian ever truly be redeemed? Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you were hooked by this millionaire drama and want more stories filled with secrets and crazy twists, be sure to hit that like button, share this video, and most importantly, subscribe so you don't miss our next shocking story. Your support is what helps us create more content just like this one.